Recently, I learned that in the Chrome DevTools, you can override the response of a particular request. Here we have override content. You can even override headers, but let's stick to content in this video. How I like to use this is to mock an API response of a particular API request. Here I have a simple app where I'm trying to get posts from the server. And this is what the source code looks like. I have this localhost 8000/post, which is a very simple server I set up to get the posts. Intentionally here, I'm returning an error, but let's say that was not the intention and it wasn't supposed to throw an error, but it still did locally. So now that I'm here, I want to see what the list of posts would look like on the UI. And there are several ways you can mock API response, but with this in the DevTools, I can override the content. And let me first copy the content I want to use. I'm using JSON placeholder here. And let's say I want to get the post. So I'm going to copy everything from here, or I can also open the network tab, get the post, go to response, and I can copy everything from here. And when I go back here, I can override content. And if this is your first time creating an override, it will ask you for a folder where you can store those override files. So select folder. I have a folder here, overrides, which I'm going to store my overrides in, and select let DevTools edit files in desktop/overrides. Yes, allow. Yes, allow. Okay, now that I have this, you can see the response that we get, which is this bad request. I can clear that off and paste the array. Oh, wow. A lot of security stuff in here. I can paste the array here and I can save this override. If I should open my finder here, you can see on overrides, I have localhost 8000 and then I have post here, which if I open should be the array for the override response. Now that I have this, I can go back to the network tab, and when I refresh, instead of getting that error, I now get post with a status of 200 and the response which I have overridden here. And we also have this little indicator to say this response is overridden by DevTools. Now you're probably wondering, why do this instead of just, for example, pasting this URL directly here? Because if we do it like this, it's still going to work. Let's go back here. See, when we refresh, everything still works fine. But the reason why this might not work sometimes is due to cost issue. Now, I learned about this Chrome DevTools override content feature while working at my company, and we have different URLs for where we put, our live deployment and all of those things. But then from our local environment, you cannot make a request directly to the live environment. So if I want to mock an API response from the live environment, I cannot just come here and put the live URL. I'm just going to get a cross-origin requests sharing or resource sharing. I think that's the R. I'm just going to get that error, but I want this to run locally. But then the thing is also that depending on how the project you're working on is structured, in my case, depending on what you're trying to do in a particular local environment, you might need to activate different servers or run different servers. Here in this simple application, maybe you want to get the list of posts, you want to get the list of items in your cart, you want to get the list of something else. For all of these things, they might not be under one server, they might be on different servers. Sometimes when you run those servers, it might not work for whatever reason. It doesn't just work locally, or running those servers might just take a long time to set up locally before you can test. Instead of having to run that server just to see a list of posts here, I can just go to the live URL. Let's assume this is the live URL, and then I can copy the response for the particular part that I want to check locally, and I can come here, override, and now I have this. Another way you might want to mock API responses, for example, you might just come here and return the array of the objects that you want to use as your mock. But the thing is, when you do something like this, when you're done, you still have to come back here to change your code. But by using the Chrome DevTools, I don't have to change my code. I just have the local environment working like it's supposed to work if the server is working as it should. But then you also want to remember to clean up your overrides, especially when the format of the backend API response changes. So you can come back here again, go to this override content. On this post here, you can just delete that post. When you delete it, we don't have an override there anymore. So when I remake a request, here we now get the default response that you get locally.